I remember 9/11. My wife and I were flying that day. And what was so amazing to us was that my wife chose September 11th, 2001, for us to return home from London, England. We were there invited to be partakers of the seminars at the Grantham Press there in London, England. And I took the picture of the World Trade Center there, a very pristine, wonderful picture. Amazingly, this picture was taken 1 month before the tragic events of the World Trade Center, of the attacks on the World Trade Center. I took those pictures right there at the base, never knowing that in a short 30-plus days that this pristine building would turn into a devastating picture that is seared in our minds. Just short 30 days. That picture, by the way, was taken by my sister as she worked down at the World Trade Center. She worked for the fire department. She's an EMT. She was there for about 60 to 90 days, working every day diligently. What a difference 30 days make. But not only those 30 days, I remember that vividly because I kept my airline ticket, my tab, flight 955 from London Heathrow to San Francisco. When we took off that September 11th morning, 2001, we took off to a world that was completely safe. When we landed in a completely different society. And the world has never been the same since. Can you say amen to that? It was a turning point for the entire world. And I never forget, after the tragedies that occurred there in New York City and in Washington, D.C. and in Philadelphia, and that resonated around the world, there were instantly only 2 groups in the entire world. How many groups did I say? 2. In the entire world, the entire planet was narrowed down, polarized down to only 2 groups in one event, in a few short hours. There were those in favor of what happened, and there were those that were against what happened in New York City. Not 3 groups, but how many groups did I say? 2 groups. And following on the heels of that, there was an interfaith service at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. Never forget that. I watched as one speaker after the other from major world religions, from major religions in the United States and around the world, whether rabbi or cleric or bishop or pastor or reverend, whatever title they had, they all stood at that podium in a united front calling the nation together on the heels of this great tragedy. But something struck my mind that at St. Patrick's Cathedral, that day represented a paradigm shift in America. Because people got together, regardless of their political and religious persuasive views, regardless of their convictions, no matter what they believed, whether they believed in life after death or not life after death, or the sanctity of Sunday or the sanctity of the Sabbath. People all got together that day, and the reason they got together had absolutely nothing to do with their religious beliefs. They got together because the nation was in crisis, the world was in crisis, and they wanted to present to the world a united front. I saw how that building, St. Patrick's Cathedral, was instantly wrapped with military and police and firefighters. And in that building, I must say, not only were there important dignitaries and great leaders and great politicians, but that was the most protected spot on the entire planet when that event took place. 3ABN had gone to New York, and we had, in November of 2001, a memorial at Manhattan Center. Amazing Facts, 3ABN, it is written. We got together to do our part, to put in our 2 cents, as it were, to let the world know that we were standing in solidarity on the side of those who were mourning for the loss of their loved ones. But something that came out of that was a book entitled September 11th, 2001, A Turning Point in International and Domestic Law. Now, the reason why that book is so powerful, it is a book that's not written by one person, but the contributors are Yale Law School, John Hopkins School of International Relations, University of Leiden, Notre Dame Law School, University of Wales, the University of Leeds, and many of the authors of this collection argue that the significance of September 11th pointed to the catalyst of a change that could not take place in our world any other way. Let me say that again, a different way. In other words, they say, these many authors, the events of September 11th catapulted our world forward in a way that could not happen outside of a catastrophic event. International law and domestic law changed instantly, and the world began to think completely differently. And things that could not have occurred under normal circumstances happened almost unseemingly overnight. I mean, you were there. You saw how the world was willing to give up anything to secure its religious freedom, to secure its safety. People were willing to do anything to be secure against terrorism. Whatever it takes, we'll do it. But as you look at this work, it's a very powerful book. And by the way, if you want to get a copy of it, it just costs $154 for one single copy. Not very much. Very powerful book. September 11th, it's entitled, 2001, A Turning Point in International and Domestic Law. Powerful scholars register their views of what happened that fateful day. What was interesting to me as I continued reading the commentary is one of the pundits suggested if we could establish a national day for family, it would strengthen our morality. If we could establish a national day for families on the heels of September 11th, it would strengthen our morality. There was a list of 4 chief concerns that came out of the September 11th event. Military security was a concern, economic security, and as you see now, energy security, as you see now. But the 4th one was less political and more religious, moral security. In other words, military security, national and international terrorism was the focus. And then we got our homeland security, our TSAs. Everything began to come to the forefront to somehow secure us in America from any further attacks against our country. Economic security. What do we need to do to strengthen our nation? What do we need to do to provide for our economic needs? And as you see right now, we really haven't done a good job. Amen. Everybody's panicking. The P word has been mentioned. The world is fragile. The egg has been broken, and you cannot stop it. You cannot put the contents back in. Also, the energy security. What can we do to get different kinds of energy so that we would be less dependent on foreign oil? But the 4th one really is the paradigm shift that I was looking at in particular. Restoring family values. Rudy Giuliani, who was one of the Republican candidates for the presidency, said the following, and he registered his views about how we need to restore moral integrity in America. Listen to what he said. He said, to achieve a realistic peace, U.S. diplomacy must be tightly linked to our other strengths, military, economic, and moral. Now, I don't know if you think about America as a morally strong place, but to some degree I think this is one of the nations that fight to maintain our morality because we have both sides to the coin. Amen? Then John Edwards, we know post the revelations about John Edwards' life, this quotation reflects in a particular way about his views concerning the restoration of morality in America. He said, the United States today needs to reclaim the moral high ground that defined our foreign policy for much of the last century. Well, what amazed me about that is, while he was speaking about moral strength in America and returning our moral values, he was having some moral issues of his own. Not to overshadow what was happening in our political arena, not to replace what was really shaking our world. He was a dot on the radar. But the bigger issue was still prominent. And while America was trying to strengthen its moral base, the world around us was busy doing their part to strengthen their moral base. And I was amazed when I began to research actually what was happening in reference to this moral strengthening of America, going back to the commandments of God. Now, I believe it's important to go back to the 10 Commandments. Do you believe that? Very important, vitally important. But how it had been interpreted was where the problem came in. I'll read the following, and I'll tell you the crux behind it. There was a movement in Great Britain called Keep Sunday Special.